Hey, this is Josh Blocken from BrazilianGringo.com, and in this video I'm going to share some tips with you on how to learn Brazilian Portuguese. So I've been living in Brazil for a few years now, and in the time that I've been here, I've seen a lot of foreigners trying to learn Portuguese. On the one hand, you have foreigners who achieve a really high level of Portuguese in a little time, and they give people the impression that they are Brazilians. And on the other hand, you have these foreigners who, even after a year of being here, they struggle to do basic things like order food at a restaurant. So what is the difference between these two groups of foreigners? What separates gringos who get super fluent in Portuguese and those who don't? The number one thing that separates these two groups of foreigners is one group are Brazilian gringos and the other group are just regular gringos. Brazilian gringos are people who are just really fascinated by Brazilian culture, and they immerse themselves as much as they can in every aspect of life in Brazil. You know, they listen to Brazilian music, watch Brazilian movies, hang out with Brazilian friends, they do dance classes, capoeira, jiu-jitsu. They look for every possible way that they can connect to Brazilian culture, and they just really love Brazil and Brazilian culture. And on the other hand, you have gringos who they just kind of end up in Brazil. They could care less that they're in Brazil, probably would rather be somewhere else, but they're here and they don't really involve themselves too much in life in Brazil. The first thing you need to do if you really want to learn Portuguese is be a Brazilian gringo, connect to the culture. Another thing that Brazilian gringos do that helps them get fluent is that they speak Portuguese from day one. They come here with the intention of involving themselves in life in Brazil, of building a Brazilian social network, and they recognize the importance of spoken communication, and they make that their goal, to be able to connect with Brazilians whenever they meet them. Even if it's just one word that they're able to say when they get here, they use that word, and then they learn another word and another word, but they don't wait until they speak Portuguese before they actually speak Portuguese. Whereas gringos, they put off the time before they start actually speaking with Brazilians. So if you really want to get fluent in Portuguese, you got to speak from day one. Another thing that Brazilian gringos do is that they recognize that the world is their classroom and they make everybody their teacher. So they learn how to say things like, "Excuse me, how do you say this?" Or "What does that mean? Could you explain that to me?" Every time that they are in a conversation with a Brazilian and they hear something they don't know, they seek to understand what that is, and they just look for every opportunity that they can to learn new things. Another thing that successful Portuguese learners do is that they speak the language every day. Even if it's just for 5 minutes, they recognize the importance of building the habit of using Portuguese, and they seek out new opportunities that they can use the language, whether it be starting conversations with random people, joining samba classes, joining forró classes, putting themselves in situations where they have to speak Portuguese. What really successful language learners do is they are committed to not speaking any English when they come to Brazil. So they'll only make friends with Brazilians, they'll get a job where they have to speak Portuguese. Even if they meet Brazilians who speak English, they will tell them, "Hey, I'm sorry, I don't speak English," or "Hey, I'm trying to learn Portuguese, let's only speak Portuguese." And if people are really persistent and want to speak English with them, they'll say things like, "Hey, I'm Chinese, I don't speak any English, we have to speak Portuguese." So being really committed to learning Portuguese is what separates these Brazilian gringos from regular gringos learning Portuguese. If you're really committed to life in Brazil and you want to learn Portuguese, you got to be a Brazilian gringo. So check out BrazilianGringo.com. We have a lot of resources there that will help you become a more successful Brazilian gringo. And you can also sign up to the mailing list where we'll give you free language tips that will help you become a more successful Brazilian gringo. You'll find links for all of this down below in the comments. So I look forward to seeing you down here in one day in Brazil.